Hi, I'm John Buttera. I've got a shop in Garden Grove, California. I'm going to show you around the shop a little bit and what I do a little bit and why I do it that way a little bit. For about 15 years I've been using a pretty simple software. It's a Mac-based unit, and it draws like you learn how to draw in high school. It'll give you a front view, a side view, and a top view, but you have to draw them all in. It kind of restricts you on what you can do on your machine because you can only really profile parts. It's like cutting out cookies. You can put a window in it or a pocket in it or maybe a beveled edge, but everything is flat. All the faces are flat, the sides are square because you're cutting around it like you might have cut on a Bridgeport. That's getting kind of old. Recently I changed over to a PC-based software where I can get into making things that have more than just three planes, a top, a side, and a pocket in it. I can start doing things that have shape. This is a triple clamp I'm making, a bottom triple clamp for a little Triumph motorcycle I'm building, and I'm really excited about doing it because now I can do things that have shape, that don't look like a brick or a 2x4 with a round edge on it or something. Now I can get into doing just all kinds of different shapes. This would be the top one, and it's because of it, the motorcycles are going to look better. I'm going to enjoy doing it because, to be honest with you, I'm getting burned out making billet parts on a CNC machine in 2 dimensions. I mean, we've seen every shape. They've been copied by everyone. Somebody will put a little different edge on it or something, but it's still, everybody's parts look the same. It's a lot easier to just pick up a phone and call somebody and have them send you something, but what you're getting is their idea of what looks good and what doesn't, and it might not be your idea. It sure as hell most of the time ain't my idea. So I make my own stuff, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm very happy when I'm done because it's my part, my style, the way I want it to look, not the way someone thinks I want it to look, not the way someone thinks they want it to look, and it's a lot more rewarding for me to do it that way. I'm messing with building a new, or I'm thinking about building a new motorcycle, and because billet is cool and you gotta have billet, I'm gonna make some aluminum parts for the frame. This will be the new rear upright that will bolt to the top and bottom frame rail, carry the swing arm. The frame on the new bike will be kind of a semi-monocoque, I guess you could call it, where it will have some aluminum pieces in it, some steel pieces either riveted or bolted in. I mean, it's what I do. I make parts, and I'm usually pretty proud of what I make, and I'm tired of doing the same thing. So now we're going to start with bikes with shape. This is a set of triple clamps I made a while back, and you can see the difference between these clamps and those clamps that I used to think were just the coolest thing in the world. Well, those look like something that got made in a 6th grade machine shop class, and these look like something that the government paid money for, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to being able to do those kind of parts with shape, parts with style, rather than those cookie cutter parts with a beveled edge and a pocket in them someplace that seems to be what is on the market today. Actually, the first motorcycle part I built was a friend of mine wanted an aluminum swing arm for his Softail, so I made him an aluminum swing arm similar to the ones I'm making and selling today. And after I was all done with it, I thought it'd really be cool to build a brake caliper into the swing arm. Well, if you do that, then you no longer can adjust your belt. You can't be moving your axle back and forth because this doesn't move. So I thought, well, okay, if a guy really wanted to do that, the only way you could adjust the belt would be to move the motor back and forth. You couldn't do that. I couldn't figure out how to adapt that to a stock Harley frame, so the reason I built the very first bike was to see if I could build a swing arm with a brake caliper in it and move the motor back and forth to adjust the belt. The first motorcycle was just mainly to see if I could put a caliper in a swing arm. So I figured out the swing arm, I figured out the frame, I figured out sliding the motor back and forth, and then one thing led to another, and I started building every part to make the motorcycle. The problem was everything was only common to this motorcycle. Most of the parts, 90% of the parts, wouldn't fit on a stock motorcycle. So I changed over a little bit and I started building components, because a lot more people wanted to buy components than wanted to buy $50,000 motorcycles. So I adapted what I learned from these bikes into a small parts line. Some of the parts on here are really kind of nice and very unique, but there again, they would only work on this motorcycle. So things like my primary, my forward controls, the swing arm, I started making those that would fit on, you know, a regular Harley Davidson. There's a handmade motorcycle there, and here's a customized Harley Davidson. I mean, it's a toss-up which one a person would like better. Personally, I like this one because it's a much easier bike to put together. I just went to the dealer and got a Softail Standard, the cheapest bike Harley makes, and brought it home, and 6 weeks later, this is what I had. It was much simpler. You got more instant gratification. I didn't have to work a year on it. And in my opinion, it's every bit as nice as my handmade bike over there. Actually, I like it better. Harley's been building bikes for a long time. They got a good style. That's why we all buy Harleys to start with, is because first of all, we like the style, and everybody thinks they can improve on it a little bit, so they take one home and they mess with it. There's a lot to that. This is my Triumph. I've been working on it for 3 years, or I started it better than 3 years ago. Triumphs were my first motorcycles, and I went to a bike show and there was a good looking Triumph there, and I got all excited and I needed to have a Triumph. So I bought a bunch of stuff, and like a lot of other people, you wind up buying a bunch of stuff, and when you get it home and you put it together, I mean, it looks like a bad hero sandwich. There's stuff hanging out of the edges and nothing fits. And so finally I put it aside, and I realized that the only way that I was going to get one that I liked would be to build my own. So I started building a Triumph along the lines of an old Trackmaster dirt track bike. As a matter of fact, I even bought a couple of old Trackmaster frames, but when I put those together, they looked like exactly what they were. They were half-mile race bikes. They had a lot of ground clearance. They had very little fork angle in them. They were built out of lightweight tubing, and I didn't figure they'd last on the street. Plus, it wasn't what I wanted it to look like. I had to learn how to build plugs to make molds off of. I tried hanging fenders, stock fenders on it, and I didn't like the way they looked, and I tried putting stock tanks on them, and I didn't like the way they looked. The tanks that looked the best were the little racer tanks, but they only hold less than a gallon of gas, so you weren't going to get anywhere on that. So I got to a point where, okay, now it's time to make tanks and fenders. So I made plugs for the fenders, which is something I've never done before, and it was something that I was able to learn. I can use that in the future. Now I know how to make a plug. This is the plug. This is the male that we use to make the mold to make this carbon fiber fender with an oil tank built right into it.
It's wonderful the way that fits.
I made that plug on my NC machine by going off of the same kind of drawings that I used when I did the frame layout. I wanted to make a gas tank for it, but one of the things I liked about the Triumph was just the style of the Triumph that I like is it's symmetrical, and I always did like the shape of the gas tanks on the little dent for the knee in there. So I carved a plug. The coil is sitting here, the ignition is sitting here.
Wow.
Thanks for coming by. This is John Buttera signing off.